Guess what? We're back. It's happening again. We don't have a Dean. We don't have a Dermot. It is just the Holy Trinity. Myself, Jimmy, Gary today. Hi, guys.
Hello, Matt Ritties. You just missed a beautiful musical intro by John. But unfortunately, the part where he went was all that you would have caught.
Yes, because the other part might have been copyrighted by a brand that loves suing people. Hi, Nintendo.
Those guys. I know. I love those guys. I love those guys. And those guys.
Iconic. Speaking of iconic.
Yes, John.
Guess what's happening? I'm going to win the league again.
No, you're not.
I'm going to win the league again,
Jimmy.
You're
absolutely not.
I'm going to win the league again, Jimmy. Just to take on from your point last week where you don't have to win the most amount of points to win games. We've proven that's incorrect. But anyway, I'm up to fourth, solidified fourth, and we're coming into third in the next few weeks because I've got a dirty little Pep Guardiola style running. And you, my friend, are screwed.
You know, I feel like a guy who goes on after Trump, because after that flurry of fucking bullshit, where do you even start? First of all, I do have more points than you. I have more points than everyone. Secondly, you're not going to win the league. You're going to finish third in the table behind me, and it means you're going to meet me in the semi-final. But unfortunately, poetic justice says I go to the final against my brother this year, because it is our last year in this format, and it is our 10th year, and it will just be the most perfect ending to my first treble to win the last league.
Actually, and hold it would be a me and Dermot final as your two most successful players.
Nope, you and Gary are the two most successful players.
Yes, me and Gary. Gary's out of it, but Gary's no man's land this year.
Gary's the anyway team at the moment in the league, John.
You're which?
I win this week on 3 on the bounce.
I'm 5 on the bounce if I win this week. When I win this week.
Oh, are you? Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I take that back.
Yes. Guess who's 6 on the bounce right now?
The other guy.
The other guy, yes. Let's go bottom to top this week for funsies. Kim is looking like she may actually beat Dean, and I think that's funny. That makes me warm in my special place. She's currently 21 points ahead of Dino, so unless literally Fabian Schär scores, Kim's going to get her first win in about 6 months, which keeps her
going to need Fabian Schär. So just for context, with the way our points model works, for Fabian Schär to pull up 20-odd points, he's going to need a clean sheet and a goal in tonight's fixture in order for Dean to have a chance.
However, the problem for Dean is that what's much more likely, it being Schär on his team, is that Schär will pound that thing into the back of his own net like it owes him money. Ahead of him on 30 points and looking like, certain defeat there for Joey against Jack this week. So the gap between them is now 6 points. Jack is on 36 points level with our very own Gary, who has looking like he's going to secure a shock win against Dave, no less. Which is a fine result for the Naggins. 3 points ahead of that, we got Draft Punk. Damo still kind of with us, currently losing to John by 8 points. That's up there with scraping a draw against Arsenal. And that's the bottom half. And in 5th place, and now it has to be said, a very solid 5th place on 42 points. It's Dino, thanks to his loss against Kim. That's going to be oh so sweet. 4th, and with now finally a little bit of a lead. First time we've had 4 kind of stable teams at the top in the promo spots. John on 48 points and 4 on the bounce, about to be 5. Definitely the form team. 3 points ahead of him is Dave, who's looked much, much safer before Christmas, and now it's just he started playing and it's gone to hell. 9 points ahead of him is me, because I am about to win the second closest Cav Bowl victory of the year. Cav Bowl 4, I'm 3 points up, and it's why I'm calling for a Paquetá ban. Because you see, my friends and listeners, Paquetá has the only player left on my team. So as long as he doesn't score -6 or a worse score, I win the Cav Bowl. Dermot remains 6 points clear, and it's all going according to plan beautifully.
I will say this. The next 2 match weeks are fucking massive. The next 2 match weeks are massive. Week 29, you have 4 teams missing because of the Carabao, the Carling, the Worthington, the whatever brand this year's cup. Aston Villa, Palace, Newcastle, Villa. They're the 4 teams not playing in week 29.
I don't have any of them, and I'm playing Kim followed by Joey, so I'm happy out.
See, the flip side of that thing is Aston Villa, Liverpool have already played that game in hand. It's Palace, Newcastle, who'll play in week 30. So they'll have a double game week in that week. So Palace and Newcastle assets are very much where it's at for week 30. But week 29 is clench and hope. Like, I'm probably going to lose next week. I'm very heavily invested in all 4 of those teams. I have Livramento, I have Asensio, I have Diaz, Gakpo, Gahey. I think of 4, maybe 5 players who are going to be out next week. So basically, I have no bench.
That's it. But then, look, this is the beauty of having a bench there to rely on, is that these things do happen, and it's usually because of stupid shit like the FA Cup or Champions League or nonsense like that, and it gets in the way of good hard football. So the really smart ones will have been planning towards week 29, and the really, really smart ones will not, because it's only 1 week. And in head-to-head, 1 week is as good as any other. So if you want to put your energy into trying to stack those doubles, you can do it in 30 and beyond. If you're putting your energy into having the razor-sharp team that actually manages to have 16 players, 18 players, it's week 29. But yes, there's 2 delicious weeks coming up, and still nothing is settled, technically. Kim is more than likely heading for Harrison, but nothing else is settled. Meanwhile, in the Cup, I mean, it's only the first leg tonight, and we're not even finished the game week, but as it stands, John, narrow win over Joey to meet Gary in the semi, who is scraping it over Dean at the moment. And in the meaty, beaty, big and bouncy end of the draw, Dermot is slightly ahead of Damo. I wouldn't call it consolidated by any means. And the only really in the bag result is I've absolutely walloped Dave. I'm 50 odd points ahead of him as it stands into the second week. So it's another Cav Bowl in the semis. It's another Cav Bowl.
So you're telling me I'm pacing. Well, I'm going to beat Joey. It's going to be a me and Gary semi-final over that side.
I think so.
I'm not hedging my bets against Gary, because that depends very much on if Cole Palmer decides to show up.
Actually show up, which he hasn't done for the last 6 months.
I know, but that'll be the week when he fucking does.
Well, this is why you get 2 legs. So you get week 30 and week 31, but isn't it fascinating to be doing a cup in week 30? Because all of those doubles are going to make things very, very interesting in you guys' semi-final. Myself and Dermot at this point.
Joey, that week 29 issue is a potential issue for me playing Joey. But if I can get through him, I'm going to say I'm on for a double this season.
And he's still very wrong.
So much for not hedging your bets against me in the semi-final.
I'm not hedging my bets against you, but if I can get through...
Well, I'm not hedging my bets against Gary in the cup, but I'm on for a double this year.
My rationale there is week 30, I'm going to have my players with the double game weeks and Newcastle and Palace players. But if you can turn me over in week 31, then that's where that game is going to come to the second leg. Liverpool at home, Champions League.
I also have Newcastle and Palace players in the mix.
John, I think what you're overlooking in all of these trophies, and I'm going to prove it. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you after we do the Eliminator. But that's a cup. It's shaping up nicely. It's going beautifully. Last update, and then the point of all of this. The Eliminator, my beloved Eliminator, where I've once again gone to the top reigning champion, followed closely by Dermot and John, quite close there between the 3 of us. There's nothing really in it. There's 38 points in it, and like 7 weeks to go, so it's grand. Jack then on 555, and then a massive drop, and the 4 teams who could potentially go out this week. 3 teams that could potentially go out next round, and 1 who's definitely going out this week. Kinder and Buemo on 481. Gary are on 484, Dino's on 448, and Draftpunk, unless there's some sort of miracle from Max Kilman tonight. That's the end of Damo's season. So overall, the picture is head-to-head, Dermot first, me second, John fourth. Cup semi-finals, myself and Dermot sailing on through. John might get there, might meet us in the final. And Elim, me top, Dermot second, John third. So, John, all of your roads to victory are absolutely valid as long as you disregard the word Kavanagh.
So you mean the only player who's won a treble is currently potentially one of 3 players who can actually win another treble?
Technically on paper,
what you're telling me. As our only treble ever winner, I could do another treble. That's all I'm hearing.
Technically you could, but it won't happen.
Don't win shit.
It will not happen. And the reason is quite simple. All year long, you've been losing to either me or my brother. Yep. All year long. That's how it goes. When we play, you lose.
Yeah. I guess
it's really, really fun.
You win early, and then at the end, you win nothing.
This
Gary,
is the pattern.
Would you care to agree with that? Jimmy normally comes out with the tracks.
I'm just enjoying the back and forward because, to be fair, normally it's me in these conversations, but this season has been a bit of a dive for me. But I I kind of agree with both. John, I don't think you're doing a treble this year. I actually think I have you in the semi-final this year.
Fair.
My concentration is going to be very much on the cup. I think
Mhm.
your concentration is probably on the league. Jimmy, John's right. You win early and lose badly at the end of the seasons. It has happened far too often for it not to happen again.
Yeah, although I don't think I'm at any risk of not making the playoffs.
You're
No,
not
no,
at
you'll
any
make the play.
risk.
No. You will make the playoffs. You may even make it to the final again.
I generally do
But the
every
eliminator as well
competition.
is,
Yep.
as the
And then lose.
transfers increase, it's going to be that squad management piece as your squad increase, as the transfers increase on the eliminator, and the cup is one of you and Dermot is going to take each other out and meet me or Gary in the final. So one of the Cavs is not even reaching the final, and I'd be hedging my money on Dermot, just rinsing and repeating you over and over again.
I mean, I'm almost hesitant to talk about the match record between myself and Dermot this year, because if it was fiction, if it was a season of Ted Lasso, it would be dismissed for being too ridiculous. He won by the smallest. Sorry, I beat him. The first game he lost, well, he lost to me.
Mhm.
The second, on a recount, the second one he won by 0.5 of a point, which is our smallest margin ever. The third one, I absolutely hammered him, but it didn't matter because I had cocked up and illegaled my team into a 0. And the fourth one is this week. And if Lucas Paquetá comes on and does what he usually does, which is kick someone in front of a ref for 50 quid, it could be a less than 3 points victory this week again. It's just a ridiculous back and forth. And now we have another two of them in the cup. And it's like, at this point, I'm scared to touch the computer. Like, if I play him again, I'm worried that like a pitch will bend or something insane. It's just all this ridiculously cool, dramatic stuff all year long. So it's great. It's fun. I love it. Eliminator, cup, head to head, it's all happening. It's the business end of the season, and it's absolutely bloody brilliant.
I will be seeing everybody with my trophies on the final day. No, I can actually see this also going the other direction where I win fuck all, but I'm not concerned.
It'll be an even split between 3 players, to be fair. I don't think there's a double winner in it at all this year.
No, it's too close. It's too close. It really is.
It's very close. It's very close. But this is what actually makes it interesting. So I suppose for anybody, like, because obviously this is going to be new to a lot of anybody listening or hearing or watching or smelling this whole podcast.
Please do not smell this podcast.
Disclaimer at the start of the podcast. Please disregard any smells from John during this podcast.
Anyway, my point was that because we have multiple game modes and game formats, you're not just doing your bullshit flat most points, overall wins, where nobody's probably checking that anymore because it's flat and it's bored and whoever's won is won. We're trying to currently manage a squad across three competitions. You have your eliminator, you've got your league and your cup. Your league and your cup team is the same, and your eliminator is a stripped back version of your team, which is... So you're trying to manage 3 competitions consecutively, which makes it feel more like we're actual managers, because it's like, ooh, I've got to apply, I've got to put more attention over on the... It's like, look at Jack and spitting that thing. Like, he knows out of the league, but he's still fighting on that eliminator and crawling.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the thing with the eliminator, as we all know, you have one goal. You have one goal, and one goal only is to just not be the person on bottom on elimination week. If you can just keep second bottom all the time, you win.
There is actually a more tried and trusted method, and to be fair, even though I am the reigning champion, the only person I've seen do this really, really well, I think there was a couple of years where it was you 3 years ago, John, and I think it was you 4 years ago, Gary. And the trick was, on the first week, you just went miles ahead. You just had this one massive week. And the beauty part of the elim is, if you have that one massive week, it can theoretically potentially win you the whole thing.
Yes.
But the problem with the one massive good week is that the one massive bad week can end your season immediately.
Yes.
An illegal in the elims, that's it, you're done. You're out, because of 0, you're dead. So it's a minefield. And while it's great at the top and it's lovely, and it's about, ooh, look at that, and it's like, at the bottom, and I've spent many seasons like that second last guy the whole way along. And it's great. It's great because the risk is always there. You know, like there's only across 2 game weeks, you could see flips of about 200 points. There's enough there for Dino to be first in 2 weeks' time. Everything can go very wrong very quickly.
And like down the years, we've tried out a whole pile. So right now we're doing cup, eliminator, a head-to-head, but in the past we've done the differentials model, we've done strap knockout football, we've done bracket football, we've done six-a-side model, all of which have ended up as septic, toxic wastelands that make Twitter look like a new age, futuristic place to be. Like, talk about dystopian nuclear bomb sites with the Fallout style. That's what our other game models have gone down the years.
There was that year where we had to introduce financial fair play because a certain couple of nameless hosts of this here podcast found a glitch wherein they could hand each other the league in the space of one night. After
Still
which we all
maintain.
we did nothing wrong, Gary.
Now's the time to talk about
nothing wrong.
With nothing wrong. We were robbed that
talk
season.
about this, Gary. Is now the time to talk about it because we can't be shouted down. Yeah. So what happened basically was we discovered a little loophole where Gary needed a win here and I needed a win there, and we made a little trade.
Oh, I'm talking about 2014. I'm talking about the Mad Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about as well. We basically player traded within the rules, and then they found out after that what we had done was unacceptable. I would say not unacceptable. It was unsportsmanlike. Fuck your sportsmanlike bullshit.
The term insider trading was used more than one occasion, and I maintain it was nothing to do with that. And if anybody else had been in our position, they would have done the exact same thing.
It's called shenanigans. If you've watched the league, you know.
It's called shenanigans, and it was perfectly legal, but everybody threw their toys out of the pram because we were,
Well, like, see,
that was the noise everyone made.
The thing is, Gary, I believe we
in
were
a Scouse accent.
We were also on for a 2-1 in terms of the trophies that year. I think it was it was me and you going for a final on one side, and then I was winning the eliminator, and you were top of the league at the time, or something.
Yeah, so we were working together to hand one trophy to me and one trophy to you.
Yes, within the rules.
Within the rules, cross shenanigans were going on to hand me the league and hand John the eliminator.
This is the joy about fantasy football.
This is the beautiful thing about this league.
There's a phone call in the background where nobody says it, and come here to me.
This is what happens in real life football. This absolutely happens in real life football, so why shouldn't it happen?
It's happening up there. Yeah, I've got to make a phone call there to an opposition boss. There's a fella there you're not getting along with. Can I have him there on a loan deal? Marcus Rashford being a prime example of a current situation in a similar way.
Oh, and while you're there, could you guys just kind of not play this week?
Well, like,
not really the same, is
it? Hang on now. This happens. This happens. How many long deals, John, is there where the player can't play against their parent club?
Within the same league, they cannot. They can be cup tied by their parent club. In a cup, they can play against their parent club. In the league, they can't. And then if it's inter-league, where it's like Spanish football to English football, Spanish, they're open season to play unless it's stipulated in the contract. What you also have got over the years is, so like Premier League, they can play each other in the league, but they can in the cup. If it's Spanish league to Italian league, Spanish league to England, they can play each other in European competition unless stated otherwise under the terms of the loan agreement. What you also get is, and this is a fucking fantastic one, where Arsenal and United are both in for a player. Arsenal are looking at player A over here. They make a bid on player B over here, so that Man United shit their pants and go top up their offer, and Arsenal actually go and get target A. So there is, look here while I go here. We did nothing wrong. Shove it.
Moving on to Arsenal, was it?
Moving on to Arsenal.
That was a very nice segue there, John.
Yes, thank you. And pardon my beautiful rant. Mikel Arteta is still a fraud, and this is the hill. This is the football hill that I will die on. I have friends who are Arsenal fans. I have no problem with the Arsenal fan base, apart from a subsection of them that live on Twitter to just, it's 11.2 yards. Arteta's a fraud. Arsenal's team is second place. They were playing a team in relegation fodder territory, and they made them look good. Arteta, sit down, and you're 11.2 yards. Cop on.
Yeah, absolute bluffer. He's a bluffer. I think there's a couple of things you need to consider with Arsenal. First of all, the squad depth, particularly up front. I like absolute criminal to not sign somebody up front. Considering that they were light and they let The name escapes me, but he went to Crystal Palace, scored his first Premier League goal recently, and he was in my team, so I can't even remember his name. But I'm doing
I know the lad. I know the lad.
I'm having a brain fart at the moment, but the name will come to me.
Went from where to where? Sorry, did you say?
Arsenal to Palace.
Oh, Eddie Nketiah.
Nketiah. Thank you very, very much. Yep.
Now,
They also let a youngster go.
that played against them at the weekend.
Yep.
Who's
For
that?
$1 million.
As well.
Mr.
So,
like centre-back in that game.
Yeah.
Huh.
So to not sign somebody up front, absolutely criminal. Their midfield is aging, particularly their defensive midfield. Thomas Partey is out of contract coming into the end of this season. Probably won't re-sign. He's getting on a bit. Jorginho feels like he's been in the league since the start, to be fair. But again, is out of contract.
I have Mikel Arteta's signings for Arsenal. I have the list here.
I know who the best one is, but Gary, they did sign a forward. They signed Raheem Sterling. Sorry, go on.
Just let me bang out this list. It's not a bad list.
Sorry, as a Liverpool, just before you do that, as a Liverpool fan, that tickled me. I won't lie. That tickled me.
I like when you're tickled, Gary.
Right. Declan Rice, defensive midfielder. Kai Havertz, sure, he's playing as a forward, but he was actually signed to play as number 8. Ben White, Gabriel Jesus is actually the only forward they've spent any money on in Arteta's reign, by the way. Just context there. Going through the list then, Thomas Partey, Calafiori, Jurrien Timber, Martin Odegaard, Fabio Vieri, Alexander Zinchenko, Mikel Merino, David Raya, Aaron Ramsdale, Gabriel, Trossard, Kiwior, Tomiyasu, Lokonga, Jorginho, Pablo Mari, Nuno Tavares, Pablo Mari again, twice. Oh, he came back from a loan deal, ignore that. Matt Turner, Marquinhos, and who's the other guy? Oh, yeah. Aaron Trusty, Cedric Zors, and Neto, and Sterling. And that's all of the signings under...
And just listen to that list, that is so heavily weighted towards defence.
Yeah.
And look, I totally get it. Defence wins the championships, that's fine. But unless you're putting the ball in the net on a regular basis, you're just not... Look, it's been proven. Arsenal this season will finish on a maximum of 75 points if they win their last 8 or 9 games. That's 14 less than what they ended up with last season, and I think it's only enough.
How many fullbacks has he gone through? It's like Ben White, Zinchenko,
it's ridiculous.
Jurrien Timber, Calafiori, Skelly.
Yeah.
And that,
but out of those 20 odd signings, a good 10 to 12 of them are either defenders or defensive midfielders.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong, he has made some quality signings. Odegaard, Rice, 2 straight off the bat have been absolutely, home runs for him. Perfect.
I don't even know if Arteta was the reason for Odegaard. I think he might have been on loan and they confirmed it in his time. But anyway, you're irrelevant. Good
player. But Rice is absolutely a transformational signing for that squad.
Yes. Because
without him, they're mid-table fodder at best. And to be fair, that's what they were for the first couple of seasons under Arteta. So he has built the team to a certain point. Will he win a championship or Premier League? Not unless they get the finger out and sign somebody up front. They signed Jesus, who did have good seasons at City, but his legs are made of glass, and that has been proven this season. But also they let Nketiah go, even though he's unproven, but he is still a number 9 and has been since youth football. So he knows the trade as a number 9, and he will probably get you a couple of goals here and there. Havertz, Martinelli, Trossard. We're going to disregard Saka because, to be fair, he's been injured. But all of these guys are attacking midfielders, and they are not built to stick the ball in the net in the same way that a Mo Salah or Isak or even Chris Wood.
They also left the child that's currently Man United centre forward go to Cheetah Odie.
And they let Cheetah Odie go.
I'm going to ask.
I
think the devil needs more advocates here, lads, because you're both haters on poor Mickey Arteta, and I've always quite liked the guy because he's a fraud. Cool. I'm going to throw two little a statement and an idea at you. I'm looking at the stats on their players for the year, and it's exactly who you'd expect are the top performers. And I think it's worth pointing out, if we're talking about forwards, Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, and Gabriel Jesus. If you have all 3 of them all season, you're probably a bit better off. If Jesus was firing like he used to. Havertz was on form. So Saka is Saka. He's a Salah, he's a Palmer in terms of return. And that takes me to my controversial statement of the evening, Gary. This one's going to untickle you. I put it to you, sir, that looking at Arsenal's woes without Saka there, feeding it in from the right, I put it to you that Arsenal are what Liverpool would look like this year without Salah.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
Same challenges, just one big difference. Consider, if you will,
between the line though.
But think about it. Between dips in quality and injuries, there's a rotation there between Jota, Gakpo, Luis Diaz, and Darwin. Between injury and rotation, you've got a relatively young midfield. Sure, I'll give you that over Arsenal. You've got the most solid guys at the back: Van Dijk, Trent, Alisson. Sure, that's where they're strongest. I think the actual difference you're seeing between the fortunes of these two teams is that Saka performs the same role for Arsenal as Salah does for Liverpool. And I cannot say again how much of a bullet you guys dodged not selling him in January. Because this is what happens. This is when your whole attack is around that one amazing playmaker and then he's suddenly gone with no replacement. Arsenal's next 3 months is what happens.
I disagree.
So I to a certain degree, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. The difference between Arsenal and Liverpool is that depth up front. So if Salah is not there, you still have 3 quality players up front in Jota, Gakpo, and Diaz. And that's not even talking about the wrecking ball that is Darwin Núñez, who essentially won the 3 points for Liverpool at the weekend.
He did.
I think that's the big difference. That is the difference between Liverpool and Arsenal. If Salah drops out, does the production up front go down? Absolutely. He's having an unbelievable season. We've spoken about it before. And this is like, this is, Ballon d'Or stuff that he is doing at the moment. Does he actually, does the production go down? Yes, but does that lose 14 or 15 points for Liverpool over the course of the season? I don't think it does.
I don't think so.
It'd be interesting because I actually ran some stats around a couple of players who I think, or one particular player who I think Arsenal should target in the summer, and how many points he's actually gained his team in the Premier League versus a combined between
Gary's
got numbers. I must look at the same for. I must do the same for Salah though, because I actually haven't looked at that, just to see whether or not your hypothesis there, Jimmy, actually holds water. So I will do that ahead of our next podcast.
Now, what I will say is, just before you go spitting off numbers, there is this thing, right? So you would have seen this in teams like Portugal's Ronaldo. You remove him from the team. You remove Ronaldo, actually improve the team, because it's the optics of the ball doesn't have to go through the main man. The other guys can take on the. So Ronaldo came off Gonçalo Ramos, who now plays for PSG, came on, bagged the hat-trick in his first game, with also carrying the weight of being the guy that was meant to replace Ronaldo. Like, fuck me. So there is times when and Liverpool would have that thing, I think, because of the way they're structured and set up and how long that team has been together, that if you pull Salah out of that team, which they've had to do plenty of times over the last few years for the AFCON and for his January injuries, where suddenly Gakpo is now getting more access, if Salah's getting 30 opportunities over 10 games, those 30 opportunities, Liverpool are still creating 25 of them, but they're dividing them around. Whereas with Saka and Arsenal, he's also, like, if they take Saka out and they're creating 30 chances over 10 games, those 25 chances, they're going to Martinelli, Havertz, Jesus. Yeah, they're not going to be converted anywhere near the same rate as a Diaz, a Gakpo. I'm not even going to say the wrecking ball, like, God forbid he actually figures out how to score, because when he does, he's going to be dangerous.
A great finish at the weekend, to be fair.
But you know what I mean? That's the kind of way you have to look at it there at times, Jimmy, that there is that ego factor of I am the main man. But a team like Liverpool with a clear structure and setup of a team will still create 90% of those chances, but they're just going to a different end source. Whereas Arsenal are so reliant on Saka do something.
Yeah, I get you. But it's grim. It's grim without him.
Numbers. I want to hear this.
Yeah, give us.
Yeah. So when we decided that we'd be talking Arsenal this on this podcast, I kind of had a look at a couple of players who I think, just a general look at their squad, a couple of players who I think that they should target, with either both within and external from the Premier League. And I started up front. We're going to disregard Saka because he's been injured for the last 10 or 12 games. He's played 16 games so far this season, scored 5 goals, and he was on track to be their top scorer. Currently at the moment, Kai Havertz is their top scorer with 9 goals and 21 games played. Martinelli behind him, believe it or not. despite his really poor performance from the bench at the weekend. 6 goals from 23, and then Trossard, 28 games and 4 goals. And then I looked at how many points did they actually gain for their teams, and I used a metric where games where they've actually scored or assisted, where it's either ended in a draw or they've won by 1 goal. So in other words, had they not scored, it would have been a draw or they would have lost.
Gary, you might call that. That's the one I call I call that the Lukaku stat. That man, if you look at his goals numbers, he has a goal every 2 games. But when you look at who he's scoring them against,
yep, he is earning points.
If you look at that, he got 5 against Everton, but hasn't scored in 6. So
are we referring to this as the Lukaku of a player?
The Lukaku.
Yes, please.
Right. I do like that.
Lukaku report, please, Gary.
Lukaku of these 3 players combined over the course of the season, they have gained Arsenal a total of 17 points. Judging by that, using the Lukaku metric, believe it or not, yeah, between the 3 of them, there is one player who plays for Jimmy's beloved Brighton who goes very, very close, and that is João Pedro, he scores the big goals. He scores the big goals. He has 8 of them this season.
The 1-1 goal. It's not the icing on the cake. The 4th in a 4-1.
It's the big goals in the important close games that count. And if you
over at the Amex, we call the 92nd minute João time.
Get fucked. And fuck VAR and fuck João Pedro and bullshit. Harrison Reed.
I swear.
Penalty, kick him.
I swear, John. I swear this was not set up for that.
Yeah. Anyway. No, I'm actually I'm really pissed off about that.
What was the score in that game, John?
Gary, continue about your business.
So Brighton 2-1, was it?
Gary, continue about your business.
Over the course of the season, João Pedro has played 22 games and scored 8 goals. He has gained 15 points for Brighton so far this season, including 2 against Fulham because he scored the winner. So in theory, João Pedro, his return for Brighton so far this year is pretty close to those 3 players for Arsenal. I'm bringing him into an Arsenal team who will create more opportunities than Brighton will. No disrespect to Brighton, they are phenomenal.
It's true.
And I do have a soft spot for them, but Arsenal will create more chances.
Yeah.
You would think that a player who has a combined return or points gained will actually have a better production in that Arsenal team. He has a higher expected goals per 90 than either of the 3 players we've mentioned. He gets half a goal essentially every 90 minutes or 1 goal every second game. Interestingly enough, though, his goal involvements every 90 minutes is 0.78. So just under a goal involvement, that's goals or assists every 90 minutes, versus 0.6 for Havertz, and it's thereabouts 0.5 for Martinelli and Trossard. So there is one player up front that they should be targeting, and it is João Pedro. We know Brighton are a selling club. Caicedo and McAllister will show you that.
I know they want Isaac. They want Alexander Isaac, but
he's the wrong player. He's the wrong player. He is the wrong player for them. João Pedro will fit into that system, and
there's a few guys like that. It's like that love that. It's like give me that pressure, give me that weight, give me that moment, and I'll be the guy. It's like when you have, for example, Ronaldo. This is twice I've mentioned him now in this podcast, but he was always for that. It's like if you had him on the pitch and he did it in the Champions League, he did it in European football, he's done it all the time. He was that clutch guy that went 5 minutes to play, we need a goal.
Yeah.
Shoulders up, chin back, let's fucking dance. João Pedro has that about him.
He has that in spades.
98-minute pen. If he missed that, Fulham are 2 points off Champions League places. They win that. Brighton are 1 point off Champions League places, and he slots it. As much as it hurt my soul, he slotted it.
He did, and it's an awful lot. You're dead right, John. It is those clutch moments where you need players of that. Arsenal have none.
They don't.
Yeah.
Even in a fully fit squad, I would argue that Rice is probably the only person I would have supreme confidence in that squad to step up in a clutch moment.
It's a very funny place because that striker market I find right now is wrong. It's wrong. It's like, do you know what it is? There's continental names. It's this usual fluffy fucking nonsense of Gyökeres. Yep, okay, the last two forwards that were signed for big money out of Portugal were Darwin Núñez and João Felix, and their careers are going wonderfully well. No, he'd be all right, but he'll never justify the price that you're going to want him for. For 20 million less, you can sign Mateta. Sorry, he's not fashionable. For another 15 million less, you could get a Jimenez who'd do you for 18 months and be more efficient. You know, there's guys out there that they're just not fashionable. They're not going to cut
Yeah, but do you think
bank?
Yeah, but do you think Brighton are going to turn down 50, 60 million?
No,
no, nor should they. And he is worth every penny of that.
No, but the first point is you're going to see all the column inches this summer are going to be about 4 strikers, maybe 5. You're going to have Sesko, you're going to have Gyökeres, you're going to have Jonathan David coming out of Lille on a free contract. You are going to have Mbeumo, and you're going to have Isak. They're going to be the 5 where all the column inches is going to be written about this summer. But in reality, all of them, none of them are the guy. Like Sesko's, he's fine. He's good. Jonathan David, he's 25, going on 26. If he was that good, a bigger team would have bought him before the contract ran out.
Where's he now?
Lille. He's playing in France.
Yeah.
He's good. Okay. He is good. He is good, but there is a reason. Put it like this. He's a guy that a few big clubs over the last 4 years or so have sniffed around, but they've never pulled the trigger on. Why? But he's on a free this summer, so expect him to end up in United jersey because they're skint. You're going to have Gyökeres. He's got like a 70, 75 million release clause. You're going to have teams sniffing around him. His numbers are great. His numbers are great in a tier 2 league. He's not a 78 to 100 million pound striker. He's good. Isak is probably the only one on that 5-man list, or in Mbeumo as well. But Brentford will pull your pants down for a fee because that's what they do. And I think Isak, because of the financial fair play regulations, Newcastle have to sell to buy anyway. So he could be someone that
sell that for his asset. I'm not sure.
They're not going to sell Isak. Isak's their whole team.
I think they'll sell Anthony Gordon before they'll sell Isak.
Gordon, Joelinton, like Bruno Guimaraes was very much up for sale in January if City wanted to stump up. Because
Guimaraes would do really well at City.
But this is with the financial fair play model. Newcastle do have to sell to buy. In terms of being able to do the squad building thing, like they can spend a bit of money, like they can probably spend 50 to 80 million in the summer, no issues. But if they want to really push the team on, one of the big boys has to go so that they can get 2 other big guys that can grow into the positions. It's very financial fair play is great and broken all at the same time.
Yeah, it's wonderful chaos, has to be said. It is wonderful chaos.
So, yeah.
Question on this João Pedro's Arsenal move. Is there any worry that he would be literally following the path, position and arc of Leandro Trossard, who was that kind of goal when you really needed for Brighton, moved to Arsenal, became an impact sub, did okay. Now they have depth problems, so he's playing 90 minutes and he's just not performing.
No, Trossard, even when Arsenal bought him, was an out of left field, out of the pocket signing. Everybody was like, huh? Really? Him?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was a shock. But also, Pedro leads the line and has the ability to lead the line.
I mean, and he's forward. He can play 10. He's probably, for me, he's arguably better in the 10, which also probably suits Arsenal because he's the kind of player who could drop.
Absolutely.
So the way the kind of false 90 thing works is like he'd drop in, Odegaard and him essentially form a box, and the 2 wide players like Saka and whoever ends up on the left-hand side, because it won't be Martinelli, they're going to buy a left side, they're going to cut inside and essentially become the 2 forwards with Odegaard and Pedro almost sitting behind. So you're going to have this kind of wide out in type double box going on all the time. It's the best way to describe it. You've got 2 centre forwards and 2 wingers, and essentially they're doing this.
Right, they're doing the attack dance, the finger dance.
Yes, it's.
And how does finger dancing impact the Lukaku of their performance? Sorry, we've just spiraled off into our own language at this point, folks. My apologies.
We have. The Lukaku of it means that traditionally they haven't had that guy who will score the goal that goes 1-0, 2-1. That game against United over the weekend. You telling me Arsenal aren't a better team than that United team?
Clearly not. They didn't beat them.
United didn't put a glove on them until they scored the free kick.
That could be said of a certain nameless best team in Europe last week against Paris as well, couldn't it? I mean, there was 89 minutes of defending, and hats off, an outstanding performance by both teams. Really brilliant football. I've never seen anything like that Dembele young fella. He's handy, isn't he?
He's one of the 3 players in the running for the Ballon d'Or this year.
But teams playing badly and then getting a decent result is kind of a good team, isn't it?
Unless
I'm not usually often one to defend United. I'm just saying they didn't lose.
If it happens on a regular basis, yeah. But United have just been.
United have been muck. They were muck up until Bruno Fernandes free kick.
And he should have won it at the end as well, to be fair.
And they could have won it at the end, other than the fact that Arsenal don't have that guy who goes, I'll be. Just the way Haaland at City, you just know. At Salah at Liverpool, you just know. Chelsea, Cole Palmer, you just know. If you have one of those guys on the pitch, if you're a goal down, you can still kind of breathe a little bit and go, well, this fucker's going to get one chance.
I'll put it to you another way. Half-time at the weekend, Liverpool were 1-0 down against Southampton. Now,
nobody's worried.
Nobody, Liverpool fans openly will admit that they're, the most nervous fans in the world, particularly when they're coming into potentially winning a Premier League title, because it is more than likely not going to happen for them. Now, it will this season. That's neither here nor there.
He said it. He finally said it.
I've said it.
He finally said it.
It's 5
wins. Have won Liverpool the Premier League title.
5 wins and a draw. 5 wins and a draw, and we're champions. Anyway.
Yeah.
There was no nervousness. There was zero nervousness there at the weekend. Even, going 1-0 down at home against Southampton, considering what had happened during the week by getting absolutely pummeled by PSG, because you knew that there was somebody, and to be fair, the 2 penalties Salah stuck away were incredible penalties.
You're looking
but then those lads in the clutch. Yeah, those lads in clutch moments where they can actually just pull that game in and hat.
Or that being Southampton, worst case scenario, they can bring on a Darwin, a Jota, a Gappo, whichever one on a given day.
Absolutely. But had that been Arsenal at home, 1-0 down against Southampton, you would genuinely be looking at that going, Southampton might even just scrape a draw here.
And I'm fairly certain Marino's a 6 or 6'8" type midfielder.
Yes.
It's not like it was a 10 playing as a false 9. It's a
no.
midfielder up top.
Yeah. Which is why I took the chance on him, because if he did score, he would get phenomenal points for my team, but he hasn't done it. Because guess what? He's not a forward.
It's nuts. It's just that. But again, look at that Man United team. There's something. I hate saying this. They seem like, I know the results even over the last 2 or 3 weeks haven't exactly gone their way. There seems to be the starting of that identity coming. You saw during the week in the Champions League, Dalot didn't cross the ball to Highland. Same place at the weekend. He did cross the ball. Mazraoui should have stuck it. Didn't. But you know what I mean? Those kind of patterns are slowly taking shape, but it's also the makeup of the squad is slowly changing. You had a £1 million Heaven in defence. You have Dorgu, who's obviously cost not too much. They seem to be shifting to a more athletic build player that they're looking to sign. Now, it's going to take probably 2 years to fix that shit show, but they're looking at they're looking at a younger, more dynamic type player. They seem over the last 2 weeks where there's a baby step improvement in terms of structure.
I totally disagree with you. Completely disagree with you. Yes, I do. Totally disagree with you. When your owner comes out and says we had to make certain cuts because if not, we would have been bankrupt by the end of calendar year 2025, your transfer policy goes straight out the window. United will sign young, cheap players. They are so incredibly close to going the Leeds United route of a couple of years ago. About 10, 15 years ago. They are so desperately close to doing that.
It's fucked. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Jimmy, just FYI, Jim Ratcliffe did an interview with Gary Neville today.
Oh, and it did not go well?
He was very honest, apart from when it came to the Glazers.
Yeah.
Because obviously they still own most of the club. But yeah, basically when they were asked about the redundancies and stuff like that, it was it's not a matter of we want to. It's a matter of potentially life or death for the club in the next 18 months.
Wow.
He referred to some players as, quote, not good enough and overpaid. And he did name check, and I'm just making sure I get this right because I don't want to call out names without getting it right. Call out Casemiro, Sancho, Anthony, Højlund, and Onana. And you could absolutely make cases for all of those players.
I'm not sure about Nana. Statistically speaking, he's a very busy boy. A very busy boy. He's got a shit defensive.
I would say
he has done for 3 years now.
I would say he's the 4th worst first choice goalkeeper in the league at the minute.
So this is where there's a disconnect. From a fantasy football perspective, absolutely. Onana is he's silver. He's not gold, but he's a very, very solid option.
He's a top 10 overall again, and was the top last year.
Yeah. But this is the beauty of fantasy football, that you do have to disconnect yourself from the reality of it, because if you're a real life Premier League manager, are you looking at Onana? No, because he costs you points in real time. Are you looking at him as a fantasy football manager? Absolutely. And this is where there's value to be had in bad players like Onana.
Fabianski, historically the siege goalkeeper. Now, he'd always end up in his prime. He was ending up 4th, 5th, in that kind of bracket in the top half of the goalkeepers. But there's a reason why nobody wants to buy him.
I hear you. Okay, so Andre Onana is a maybe, but definitely Casemiro.
Casemiro
he was awful.
He's
been awful all season.
He was actually very good in the Europa League the other night and against Arsenal the other day. He was very good, but he was all right. You need a little better than all right from a fella who's won multiple Champions Leagues and is being paid the bones of 400k a week, 350 grand a week. But
you can't blame him. He's been offered a contract of 400 grand a week at, what is he, 37, 38?
34.
34? But still, you can see the legs going. Why would he turn that down?
100%.
But yeah, Casemiro, I would argue Højlund as well, although he is young.
Højlund, I feel really, really, really bad for. He should not be Man United's first choice striker. Do you remember Hernandez, Chicharito, the little
yes?
That's what his role right now should be. You've come in, you're raw as shit. You're going to be the guy that we bring on for 20, 30 minutes with energy, running. Let's get a bit of confidence under your belt while you learn from a senior striker. The next 2 years of your career are learning from X, learning from Y. Yeah. What's happened there is he got dumped headfirst in the deep end and went, you've got to lead this forward. Like, most forwards aren't Wayne Rooney, who can take that pressure on at that age and thrive. Most aren't him. Now, I listened to this very interesting scout not long ago. It was an Italian scout, and they were showing Højlund's first 25 games for United versus his last 25 games for United. In that first 25 games, it was like the volume of running the channels that he was doing, even though he wasn't getting chances created for him. Whereas now he's not running those channels. Now he's back up against a defender and wrestling with them. It's that making it a physical battle. Right? Like, he's fast as fuck. He's one of the fastest forwards in the league. It's nuts how fast he is. But you haven't seen it this season because not once has he opened up the lungs and gone, chase me, fool. He's gone WWF John Cena. Let's have at.
Yeah, and that comes down to the style of play that United have, which is why
he was bought to run those channels. He still should be running those channels and getting into those positions.
If you have a system in play if you have a system in place where you're not playing to those strengths, where you're not playing two players running those channels, why would you do it? Then that's headless chicken syndrome. And this is why I'm saying to you that I don't think Amarin is putting in those bits to actually build out the philosophy and the identity of United. He's absolutely not doing that.
Fair.
He probably needs about 6 or 7 players to do that. With all of the cost cutting that's going on with Radcliffe and the boys, I can't see that happening. They're not going to go out and splash the cash in the summer.
Between January and the end of the season, between Sancho, Rashford, and Anthony's wages, they're saving about 14 million on the books, maybe more even.
Yeah, but there's a premium when you sign players to go to United unless you're signing them young and cheap. We know this. If you look, and again, it's something that we can look at for a future podcast. But if you look at the signings over the past couple of years, how many of those players have been signed on inflated transfer fees,
all of them,
signing on bonuses, and inflated wages? Anthony,
Mason Mount, Casemiro, Anthony. Jesus Christ, go back a little further. You had Pogba, you had Lukaku,
Harry Maguire.
You had Bailly. Jesus fucking Christ, you've had
You could look at
Di Maria. Let's keep going. I can keep that list
going. You can keep going, absolutely. But that's not changed. That has not changed. There is a premium for clubs in the Premier League who are signing players, particularly from abroad, and then there is a Man United premium on top of that. Because they are the richest club, or maybe not the richest anymore because of it, but they're always within that top 3 of revenue.
Well, Gary Neville made a very good point. He was like, this is how much United have fallen over the last 10 years. Even 5 years ago, the conversation wasn't can we get Pogba? It was how much is it going to cost to get Pogba? Now it's the conversation isn't how much would it cost to get Jude Bellingham. It is more there's no point because you're not going to get him. That United 5 years ago, that wasn't the conversation. If they looked at a player, they'd go, right, how much is it to get him? Whereas now they can't even shop in that basket anymore. They've gone from shopping in the Whole Foods to Lidl.
Yes.
Quick stat fact. Just looping back to Højlund for a moment. I'm sure he's very talented and very fast. I'm sure he could be a very good player, but at the moment, he's just below 3 points a week for the season. Yeah. Putting him just behind Calvin Phillips.
Which is why I traded him to Kim for Jota.
Kim trades don't count. So we give Kim a hard time in her absence a lot, but the reason is because Kim has accepted her fate as bottom place this year and is making wild trades depending on who's her favorite each week. And it's actually kind of sweet because she's like, oh, this person needs help, so I'll give him a trade. Several times she's refused me trades on the grounds that X needs it more. She's got a big heart, but yeah, fair play to her.
Anyway, so I think, Gary, you're going to be crunching some numbers around some football teams for the next one. Jimmy, I believe you're going to be crunching some numbers about our football for the next one. And me, I'm going to sit here and rant on the next one. Is there any, what do we need to talk about? I think that's it for tonight. I think just a case of, we have a shitload of blogs. I've written a really fun blog, actually. Anybody should really check this one out. I'm very proud of this blog. It is the Fantasy Football Bingo Card. How many of these things have you said or done? It is horrible. It is saddening. It is maddening, but it is so fun.
It's a roller coaster ride of kills, thrills, chills, and swearing at a small number on a screen on the jacks on a Saturday afternoon because that guy you just put on plowed the ball into his own net. It's a good read, as are so many of the other articles over on Statrcast.com. And if you're heading that way, why not join the waiting list? Because we are getting tantalizingly close to launch. We're so close. I can taste it. I can smell it. I can almost rub it on my face.
Why are we talking? We keep talking about smells. But yes, we are.
Do not smell the podcast.
Do not smell the podcast, but smell the app. It scratches.
But it's all happening. We are on an uncertain schedule next week, folks. Next Monday is St. Patrick's Day, and while myself and Gary will be shillelaghing our potatoes right into the Shamrocks, John will be on a jet plane, zipping around New York, hanging out, flying the flag for Ireland and for Statter, and having a grand old time of it. Yes, this is who we've sent. If you end up with Trump, put me on the phone to him. Okay, that's all I ask.
All I will say is I will come back here with a new accent, a new outlook on life. Watch him walking there.
Okay, right. I'm adding another one to the rules. If I'm not doing gangster rap, you're not doing accent anymore, right?
That hurts. Anyway, on that note, bye.
So long, darlings.
So long.
Next week.